I'm Adam,
I'm Dan.
and we're here to talk about Atomic Blonde.
Yeah. You go ahead.
Basically, we saw this last week, but we didn't get a chance to film it till now. Um, I'll start off, I guess, with Atomic Blonde by saying that the movie was not what the trailers made it out to be.
Yeah,
Kinda.
I definitely agree with that.
When I saw the trailer, it was I think I made the joke saying oh, it's Jane Wick.
Yeah.
Because that's the movie.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah.
It's kind of what they kind of put forward.
I mean, to me, the trailer made it seem like it was going to be like a high energy kind of, not comedy, but like a sort of fast paced like upbeat action movie.
Yeah, like essentially, it made it seem like it was gonna be nothing but just a pure action film almost. And then you see the movie, and the movie's actually more or less like a spy thriller.
Yeah,
espionage
yeah,
film,
like a
basically.
legit kind of spy thriller.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit jarring because I absolutely agree. I went in expecting the same thing, and then that's not what we got, and it was jarring. But what we did get was actually a pretty good spy thriller, to be fair.
No, even though I didn't get what I was expecting, I still ended up getting a rather pretty good film.
Yeah.
Essentially, I loved Charlize Theron in this movie. She was really good. She gives a really good performance.
Yeah.
It's kind of she's essentially kind of like a female James Bond. I mean, I know that's kind of easy to say, but she kind of is. I mean,
she
minus
kind
the
of
gadgets and stuff.
Yeah, minus the Q stuff, but she embodies that sort of she's aloof. She doesn't, she cares deep down, she wants to get the job done.
Yeah.
But she's not gonna sit there and act like it's important to her. It's a job to her, and she's doing her job.
She's got that kind of too cool for school attitude.
Yeah, exactly,
this sort of thing, and it's and it was it worked, and she did a hell of a job in it. And,
she was really good. James McAvoy was really good.
James McAvoy was really good,
playing basically just a crazy spy.
Yeah, essentially.
The job has driven him insane.
Yeah, and he puts on a really good performance. I like James McAvoy. He's an actor who could give really good performances. I just don't think he gets enough good roles.
Right.
But I really enjoy him.
One thing I wanted to point out was we mentioned how the trailer made it seem like it was going to be like a thrill ride action movie, just one set piece after another, and that's not what we got. The action scenes were still good, and not only were they good, they were shockingly brutal. like the thing, because again, in the trailers we see some of the action movies, and I thought it was going to be sort of highly choreographed, she's flying through the air, strangling people with the hose, because especially in the trailer, that's how they cut it, is it's just she's completely in command of the fight and just, Batmaning around. And then, she does that in the movie, but it's not some highly choreographed thing. She's in a desperate situation, and, she and the other characters beat the living hell out of each other.
Yeah.
And they look like it at the end of the fight, is the thing. They don't shy away from making Charlize Theron look like she's been beaten half to death.
Yeah, I mean, not to compare it too much, but the action scenes in this movie, when Charlize Theron is essentially fighting with her bare hands against an onslaught of different guys and shit like that. To me, it draws a little comparison of The Raid.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, not exactly, but I mean just that realism of it, where it's it's not it's not like the standard action movie where you see fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger get punched in the face and he's fine. She gets punched in the face and a few seconds later you see her she's bruising and stuff like that. She's bleeding.
That's what I was gonna say. It's not like your Schwarzenegger and your Stallone where they take on an army of dudes and even if they get hit, it barely slows them down. The thing was in the movie when she the fairly rare occasions, honestly, that she has a gun.
Yeah.
She can take out a horde of dudes because she'll headshot them and she'll, kneecap them and then headshot them. And, she's a good shot and she'll take on a group of people like that. You get her against even one or two guys barehanded, you're going to be there for a little bit because she has to, just physically beat them down.
There's that, near, a little past the halfway point of the movie, there's a 7-minute, uncut, tracking shot of her just beating the shit out of a bunch of guys when she's trying to protect that one.
When they're in that little apartment building or whatever. Yeah,
it's clever. It does have cuts in it. It's not technically one shot, but it's cut to a way to look like one shot.
Yeah,
and it is just a feast for the eyes. That scene. That scene is amazing.
Yeah.
And the problem with that scene, though, is I wish they shot more scenes like it, though.
Right. Yeah, it's very good. And the action is very good. I will say the writing is mostly good. There's a few spots that it gets a little wonky, but it's a spy movie. You kind of expect it, honestly.
Yeah.
And, like, for that, speaking of that, like, it's a spy movie. There's going to be a few parts that are confusing because that's how those movies are made. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have much of a problem following it. I pretty much knew what was going on.
I didn't really have a problem following it. I followed it well, but the thing is, like, okay, like, in the movie, it's about her trying to get this list.
Yeah.
And it's like a list of, what was it, like what the hell was the list again? It was like
it was a list of, like, all of the, like, espionage agents, but, like, not just, like, the UK or the US, like, all the espionage agents in the world, essentially, like, that were active at the time.
Yeah.
And their secret identities and, like, all of their aliases and all of that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So, like, it was some, like, it was this list that listed all of those things, which would then, if, any major power got it, would compromise everyone everywhere and basically make the intelligence community collapse because no one would be able to get anything done.
Yeah.
And it was being sold, like all the major powers were vying for it, but it was also the person who had it was actually looking to sell it on the black market for reasons that aren't well defined. I'm not sure what the black market was going to do with it other than try to sell it to one of the major powers.
Yeah.
That's one of the flaws.
Like that was, to me, one of the flaws was the fact that, like, they explain what the list is, and then you have, like, several different groups of people trying to get the list. And for some of the groups of people, it's very clear why they want it. But then for some people, they never really clarify why exactly they want this list. Now, granted, I understand the list isn't really important. The list is essentially the MacGuffin, of the movie. It's not really, it's just what drives the plot forward. It's not really actually all that important in the movie that much. So that was a little bit of a problem. I liked that the film took place in the 80s. I liked the aesthetic of the film.
Oh, definitely.
I like the colors in it. I love the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack to this movie. The only problem is that there are some scenes in this movie, these action scenes, where they play, like, an 80s pop song or a rock song or something like that, and the song does not fit the scene.
No.
Like, there's several instances in that movie.
There's a couple instances of that.
The only other really big complaint I have about the movie is that there is underdeveloped characters. There are three major ones that come off the top of my head. And the first one is the guy who has the list.
Yeah.
Because he literally shows up in, like, the first, like, 10 or 15 minutes of the movie.
And then you don't see him for another 30.
You don't see him for, like, another 30, 40 even. Yeah. He then comes back in the middle of the movie when, like, Charlize Theron has to, like, get him across
to West Berlin.
To West Berlin safely. And then it's like we're treated as if we're supposed to care about this guy.
Yeah.
It's treated as if this is vital importance, and, like, they try to, like, shoehorn, like, this thing with his family also, and it's all thrown at you all at once. And it's like, and then, like, she literally fights for her life to save this guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't get emotionally invested because, like, I know nothing about this guy. The only thing I knew is that he's the guy who has the list.
Like
he dies.
Right.
And then another character is the French... The French agent, who's the one played by the actress who's, sorry, I don't know her name.
I don't know the actress's name. I don't remember the character's name either. That's
and, the girl from The Mummy.
Yeah.
Like, her character ends up being, like, a love interest to Charlize Theron, which, like, those are some good scenes. like, those are some damn good scenes. But other than that, like, we are giving her, like, this treatment, like, she really means something to Charlize Theron, especially, I don't want to spoil the end, like, the movie, but, like, at one point, like, she's kind of in danger, and Charlize Theron is essentially, it's like a race against time for Charlize Theron to get to her in time, and it's like, we're treated like Charlize Theron, like, wants to save her, like, she loves her, and they literally spent, I don't know, 15 minutes of screen time together, maybe. And, like, the first half of it was essentially just them kind of flirting with each other. Yeah. And then the next scenes we see them in is them fucking.
Suddenly they're just together. Like, they didn't really establish, like, them developing feelings for each other. It just sort of happened.
They don't. And the thing is, like, look, James Bond is the same way. James Bond usually, it's always a running joke in the James Bond movies. The first girl he ends up having sex with in the movie is always going to end up dying.
Yeah.
Like, it always ends up being in some kind of danger. He tries to save her. But the difference between this and a James Bond movie is, but when she dies, James Bond isn't devastated.
Right.
You know, he's devastated that he didn't get to save her, but it's not like he's emotionally devastated.
Right,
like, like it really bothers him.
Mm-hmm.
He really doesn't care. Charlize Theron, on the other hand, acts like she really cares.
Yeah.
Like she loved this woman, and it's like we are given no reason to think that this was a actual romantic relationship.
Right.
I thought this was just a physical relationship.
Like,
you know?
like I had actually spent like the first scene where like it's shown that like they're trusting each other and like opening up. I had actually spent most of that scene just assuming that the reason we're seeing it is because like Charlize Theron is slipping and this was going to come back and bite her, like she was going to be betrayed.
Yeah.
And then she wasn't, and that was off-putting because it's like, but I don't believe this.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And then the third character I'll mention is James McAvoy's character, which that's my other complaint about the movie is the fact that there's not enough James McAvoy in this. Yeah. He was charismatic, he was funny, he was intimidating when he had to be intimidating. He was just overall really great performance. Problem with his character is that by the end we don't really understand what his motivations were.
No.
And I felt like if the movie just would have gave us like 5-10 more minutes with him, we might have understood him a little better.
Like the biggest flaw was that big like climax for him right at the end when he's giving that speech about how he loves Berlin, because he gives this whole speech and like he's building up to a crescendo and he's like essentially spouting his philosophy, which should have been his motivation.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand what he was going for.
No.
Like, there was no end point.
There wasn't.
So it's much like you said, like, I think we needed a few more scenes where he was given time to, like, discuss this with people. Yeah. Or if not discuss it with people, at least, like, see him working and see the way his mind is to figure it out. Yeah. Because ultimately, it was just kind of him being crazy, but it wasn't crazy like he transformed because of the things around him.
Yeah.
It just seemed like maybe he was crazy.
Yeah. And then, you get to the end of the movie, like the last 15 minutes of it.
That's
and
my
essentially, here's the thing.
Complaint.
Usually, when you get espionage and spy films and shit like that, you expect some twists and turns, okay? Like, it goes with the territory. You expect that, okay? Yeah. Not to say that this movie didn't throw us any twists and turns throughout it. Only a few. Yeah. But, like, right in that last 15 minutes, we got, like, several. Like all in like one go. Yeah. And like that was the part that I could see people saying they were a little hard to follow it because it all happened so fast and you have like zero time to digest it.
And like that whole ending scene
10-15 minutes of the movie does extremely like it does feel extremely like it was tacked on. And, like, it didn't feel necessary. Now, granted, this is based off a graphic novel, I think. So it's like maybe... I don't know what the graphic novel... I don't know how,
neither of us are really familiar with it.
I don't know how accurate this movie is or how faithful it is. Maybe that's how the graphic novel ends. Right. I don't know. But all I know is that I think if you would have just cut that last 15 minutes of the movie, just had it end at the interview, I think it would have been a much better ending. The only other thing I want to mention is that the movie starts off is essentially narrated by Charlize Theron because, like we established, she's being interviewed.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie starts off. The movie starts off with, like, showing her getting ready to go to the interview, and then it's, like, 2 months earlier or 3 weeks earlier, whatever it was, like, earlier than, like, present day, then earlier. She's telling a story. And that could work for some movies. Okay, like, it works for, like, Usual Suspects. Yeah. It works for some movies. But a movie like this, where it's, like, she's being interviewed, and it starts off with showing her in the bathtub, and you see her in fucking bruises and cuts, and she's swollen and shit like that. It kind of ruins a little bit of the suspense.
A little bit.
Because at that point, okay, she's going to get fucked up somehow.
Yeah.
And we know she's going to make it out alive.
Yeah. And more importantly, it's like, like, even if you had just, like, had her straight up in, like, a hospital or something, like, you would have known she gets messed up, but it was more like the tone of it. Because, like, she's messed up, and she's just in a bathtub full of ice, like, I guess trying to get the swelling down, whatever you do that for. But, like, she's just in a bathtub full of ice, and she's alone. And, like, it's a nice enough room when you see it. It looks like it's fairly high class. Like, she's not in the slums, but like, she's still alone. There's no one around. And she's, getting herself out of the tub and, limping over to the sink. And, like, she starts to put on makeup to make it so it's not so obvious that she's beat up. And it's like, it feels like this defeated moment. And my point is, like, even if you'd had her just straight up in a hospital or something, like, okay, she gets messed up, but, like, there are ways you could do it so that you don't know that, like, it's going to end on a down note for her. Like, that was the thing, is, like, you spend the whole movie going, like, okay, well, we know that she gets messed up, and we know that she's upset by the end of it. Like, like, you know, so things can't end that well. Like, you know, like leave it ambiguous at least.
That's all I have to say about it. I guess we'll just go into overall thoughts and scores. I'll throw it to you then.
All right, so
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the movie that I expected, and there were some problems, and unfortunately, they were writing problems, which you know can alter the way a movie feels a lot of times. But you know, the performances were, you know, there's a couple of really strong performances, and the other ones were, you know, fine. They were perfectly serviceable, and you know, there was some good music, there was some good action, and I was entertained. I didn't have any problems following it for the most part. So other than kind of a weak ending, I'd say it was, you know, maybe not like top 10 for the year, but it was a pretty good movie overall. I'd happily watch it again. So I'm going to go with a 7.
7? All right. For me, I feel roughly the same way. It's an entertaining film. It's going to hold your attention. Ending aside being a little tacked on and feel a little too many twists and turns for such a short span of time. The action scenes are still extremely good. Charlize Theron still gives a great performance in it. James McAvoy is fucking great in it. Like, some characters are a little underdeveloped. I wish we would have had maybe a little more time with them or something. Just so that way, just like when these situations come up where like they're supposed to essentially be like the driving force in something, like I could have at least given a shit about them. Other than that, though, yeah, I agree. It's an entertaining film. It's not one of the best films of the year, but I mean, definitely was worth the money that we spent to go see it, and I definitely had a good time with it. I give it a 7 out of 10 also. That'd be my score. So, that's gonna do it for this review. He gives it a 7. I give it a 7. Definitely, we recommend it, and we say you go check it out. That's gonna be it for this. Please thumbs up the video if you like it. Subscribe to our channel if you want to see more of these videos. And please leave a comment and let us know what you thought of Atomic Blonde. Maybe you thought it was a little better. Maybe you thought it was a little worse. Maybe you're going to give us all the reasons of why we were wrong.
Yeah, maybe you're a fan of the graphic novel and we're a bunch of heathens. You know, either way.
Maybe you can explain to us James McAvoy's motivations a little bit better. I don't know. But that's going to do it for us right now. We'll be back with Dark Tower.